Right, so we have Christian Paul with us. Christian is a true lover of open source software, and he regularly attends conferences like PostDem and has worked in various startups. And for the last 7 years, he has been working on the Matrix protocol. But like you will see here, he's been looking at other standards like the Web of Things or ActivityPub, which are both from W3C. And he has been building integrations and prototype servers for the joy of experimenting. So he lives in Berlin and is actually will be here with us in the What Week. So if you want to meet him in person, coming to Munich is a very good opportunity, and also to meet everyone else. Right, and with this, so if you just ask the question, briefly introduce yourself, and yeah, the floor is now yours. So we will now hear about Web of Things for everything.
Yeah, Web of Things for everything. Let's start, I guess. For me, Web of Things has been like a hobby for quite a long time, and I've always asked myself kind of like, what are the limits of IoT? That's kind of like always what I've been driven by, and what I want to share today, what that has become, I guess. It kind of started 6 years ago with like a relatively harmless YouTube video of me like just building a new thing with this like Web of Things protocol, or like the standard in TypeScript with an Express server. Just understanding what kind of endpoints are there, how can they be manipulated, and how can I get things onto a screen to actually like transition from like a virtual countdown thing or a virtual light bulb to like simulate what an actual light bulb or an actual like countdown would do. At that time, there were a couple of libraries already to do this. I started in the Mozilla IoT community before then migrating to the larger Web of Things community. And I think since about this year, I think it's fairly uncontroversial. If you want to build something with JavaScript, you would use Node.wat from the Eclipse project, which is an awesome library. You first create a servient for server-side Web of Thing. So you define your server, then you define the thing, and then expose the thing. That's to reiterate, define the server, define the thing, let the server expose the thing. That's what makes the most sense if you have an actual thing in front of you and you want to connect that to the internet. And also, if you want the stability and all of the protocols that I have implemented, it's awesome, like how many different protocols they already support, how many different output formats, input formats. It's amazing. Really good for production, but you're not here to listen to your line, Father, are you? You're here to learn about that shadowy place. Came with the question, what are the limits of IoT? So let's get closer to that one. A year after that YouTube video, I proposed the idea, hey, can we build a web thing for every element on OpenStreetMap? OpenStreetMap is kind of like this free alternative to something like Google Maps. Has a lot of similar goals. Some are different, but for the most part, you would use it for hiking or for printing a map of your local neighborhood, something like that. All of these are like all of the elements, like every path, every store, every whatever is inside of this big database. And for example, I was interested in the opening hours of my local library. You can find that here in the attributes of this element. But also, yeah, so I built that as a thing. One of the issues here is that every element on OpenStreetMap does not fit onto like a regular small server. It's over a terabyte uncompressed data, the entire planet, and neither will it fit into your RAM if you create a thing for every element. It's just way too much. Programmers might already know what the answer here is. We need to switch around this, like step 2 and 3. So we define our server, then we immediately start the server, and we define the things on demand. So only when somebody requests the opening hours of the Vancouver Public Library, only then do we download that data. So what this looks like in terms of a URL is we have OSM for OpenStreetMap. Then what kind of information are we interested in? The opening hours in this case. OpenStreetMap has 3 different types of elements. One is called away. That's whenever something has like multiple nodes. And this is the ID in the OpenStreetMap database for the Vancouver Public Library. To actually accomplish this, is it open? Is it not open? It got quite complicated. I first had to fetch the element from OpenStreetMap, then resolve the address to a time zone, fetch the local holiday days, parse the opening hour string, and then set timeouts in case you subscribe to, or like, what is observe the property. It was fun to build. It was not fun to maintain in my free time. I think it's still working, but I'm not exactly sure if it still does. The idea of like building something like that has never really left me. So in the beginning, fast forward to this year, in the beginning of the year, I was like, hey, that with OpenStreetMap, that was pretty cool. I wonder if I now have enough experience with Web of Things to kind of like find a way to like a framework or some kind of server that I can easily extend with like different things that are not just built specifically for this one purpose. So that's how Web of Things Anything, my own extensible server, started. It has much of the same ideas, just it started again with something that I could only find in an API. These are city bikes. They have stations, and the stations have a certain amount of bikes available. They also only have a certain amount of parking slots available if you already have a bike and want to park it. So what does it look like for a city bike station in Web of Things Anything? First, we always have an application ID I need that to know where to route that request to. So it's U-Bikes in this case for the operator of these bike sharing stations. And then an ID of the station. Web of Things Anything matches these API operations directly to the operations that you know from Web of Things if you're a developer. So we have direct matching to get description, get property event emitter. This is kind of like a translation for observe property to JavaScript. And then if you need the additional performance, you can also get multiple properties, get all properties. If you're lazy, they can also be handled by my server just through get property, and it will first get the description and then iterate through all of the properties that are readable. The neat thing about dealing with it like this instead of first defining your thing is that if I get a request on any of those at any time, any of those functions, only then do I have to think about, hey, do I already have this element created? Do I already have this like the data for this element cached? So I don't know in which order you're going to call this, or like when, you know, like somebody could be asking just for the property because they already have the description. Somebody could be asking for the description and then ask for the property afterwards. Somebody could be asking just for the event emitter. So here's that thing. It's the UBike stations. This is live data. So we currently have available bikes, 6 bikes available here. In their API, they also had GPS coordinates. So I built this map that shows me where the station is. The total parking spaces, 45, and then empty spaces. Yeah, that's all coming from an API. Theoretically, there are, I think, about 7,000 other stations. We don't need the data of those unless you ask for them. In the summer, we also found DMX lights. Those are the lights on the far back, these like round black things that they can light up the wall. And you can talk to them over ArtNet. It's what musicians and like stage technicians work for doing big shows, or if you have like a club, you would use these. Like it has its own protocol and whatnot. If done correctly, it kind of looks like this, where, hey, we have a MIDI, what is this, like drum kit hooked up to this laptop. The laptop then converts this to control the lights. Obviously, I wanted to tap in with the web of things. So again, we have to come up with a URL. That's ArtNet, and then one for the universe. They have it's just an ID for the universe. Every universe has 512 channels. If you have a light, it doesn't really. Oh yeah, this reset because I'm still working on this. It's if it has a light can be on any of those channels. They're like not really like you configure it on the light which universe they belong to and which channel they start with, and then they take up a certain length of channels. It's a very binary thinking format, and yeah, long list of channels here. So if we want to just handle like this information for one thing, then we need to define what channel does this light start on and how many channels does it take up. So we have a light that I just say I have configured it to channel 19, and it takes up 10 channels. So it's like maybe the brightness, RGB, panning, or whatever, something like that. So that gives me a different thing here, or a different URL in the for the web of things. We see here it has channel 1, but actually it informs me that this is channel 19 in the universe. So these are all mapped to different channels in the universe. That's still not very helpful because it just has numbers and I don't know what these numbers mean. For example, if this is my light, I have a product number, which I can like, okay, it's universe 1, starts on channel 19, and it's this device. So I get a different thing. This one now has names with, oh, this is the pan, this is the fine pan, this is tilt. We have a color wheel inside, we have strobe, dimmer. Makes a lot more sense to control it like this. You might have noticed that these different things that I presented all have overlaps in their properties. They're all called differently, but on the back end, these are controlling the same channels. So that's something I can just create array of integers, and depending on which URL you go to, I map these differently onto the array. And if I have this event emitter, it knows which channels you're interested in and then will emit the events related to those channels. Something that I don't think would be possible with other libraries that I have seen so far. To visualize all of this and debug all of this, you've already seen it a couple of times. That's the UI. I didn't only build an extensible server, I also built a client to interact with these things. So this client here is what range. It has support for various properties like integers, numbers, always both as an input field as well as like a display of what the value is like on the server. String enum, array of strings, array of integers, yeah, like a bunch. Or objects. Also played around a little bit with base64 encoded media so that I can play videos or play audio. And then I built this thing where I can upload an image. And yeah, for an e-paper display, I reduced it to 7 colors and a specific resolution, and so that I can like, yeah, get this e-paper data for like printing it directly onto my e-paper screen. What else? Oh, yeah, a mood tracker. I'm in a long distance relationship, and it's sometimes hard to keep up with what the other is doing. So it's lovely to every now and then give the other a little bit like of a hint that you're still alive. Obviously, other than like calling them, texting them. So I built this like mood tracker where I can like, ooh, I'm feeling happy. And then we can both have this overview. Oh, next screen. This overview where we can see each other's mood and when it was last updated. So again, combining values of individual things in like one thing that combines the values of. I think in this case it's actually containing both of the URLs of the like the one thing and then the other thing, and fetching them and just displaying them in one UI. But it's also all dynamic of like they could be switched around by I think the first one is a mood and the other one is a mood collection which contains 2 or multiple moods or mood things. For kind of like playing games, I also built this like Kahoot choice, if you know that game where like with coworkers you choose like you have questions of, hey, when did this song came out, and then you have 4 choices and can answer this. So there is like a game that could be built with this. I haven't used it so far, but I'm really keen on trying it out pretty soon with my coworkers. Speaking of games, if you want to play D&D, here's a dice, D20, and the entire character sheet of my D&D character underneath. So that can be built, I guess, with Web of Things. Something more practical. This is maps again, but I'm now going to go like using buttons on my second screen, and will click on, hey, let's go to Taiwan. And because I've lived there for a while this year. And I want to tell you about this bridge that I have here as like kind of like a block model. That's over here. So I can place a marker on this map. By the way, this is all controlled by the web of things here with like, where's the center of this map? What's the zoom and where's the markers? And then I can zoom into the town or zoom into that specific place where that bridge is. Plenty of people can control this. At the same time, I can change the value over here and it will change live. Let's move it a little bit. Yeah. Web of things. Yay. I could control the entire presentation. This is built all in Reveal.js. I could hook that into Reveal.js and like put this entire slideshow onto like as a thing. Is it paused? Am I looking at the overview? Is it dark mode? Yeah. So what are the limits of IoT? Not sure. Can somebody pick a number between 0 and 255?
32.
32. Did you know that the Godot game engine has support for the HTTP and WebSockets? So if you want to build a game that uses your Web of Things, feel free to. But yeah, what are the limits of IoT? Currently, it feels like we have reached a limit, but not of IoT, but we have reached the limit of what I can build so far with my free time. What I have achieved is some HTTP, also server sent events and WebSockets for properties and for actions. Setting, observing properties, invoking synchronous actions, basic types, nullable properties, and base64 encoded media. All of those are supported by both this project, what anything and what wrench. But I have an even longer wish list of where things can go. Optimistic UI, you notice that sometimes the values are resetting to their old value and then they all of a sudden flip back to what I set them to. That's because I'm currently not optimistically trusting that, yeah, this has arrived on the back end and has been accepted. Observing events has been on my list for a while. Asynchronous actions, input selectors, so that if I want to have more control over how to set this, like for example, with the colors, I can now only use the color input, but if I want to input a color with like the string input for whatever reason, then I could hopefully switch this around in the UI. URI variables would be so fun for like the U-bikes, the bike sharing. Instead of looking for it by their ID, like look for it by the geo coordinates. Supporting multiple languages, thing models would be fun. JSON LD would be fun to properly support and not just have a few hard-coded in there. Tests, documentation, security mechanisms, that would all be great. How can you support this endeavor if you want to? Provide mentorship for self-employment. I would be interested in working on this more or less official. You could also hire me to work on these projects or help with the UX design. Currently, this is all using standard material components. If you have like an idea of how to structure this better, how to make a lot of properties on one thing more accessible, then please get in touch. Send me your things, both thing descriptions as well as, do you have an online thing that's accessible on just on a public URL, or behind some fairly trivial authentication, please send me those so I can support them, especially if you're there at the What Week. So I would love to add support for more things that we can have at the Plugfest. Talk to me online or at What Week. Thank you very much for your attention.